I was just thinking this morning, uh, and what I concluded after my thoughts was that South Africans are tired of promises. South Africans are so tired of hearing promises that no politician from any political party will ever solve the South African problems that we face at the moment. Because come election time or towards election time, new parties they start up, and some of them they start up so well that they manage to raise money in excess of 100 million rand, and you have all these business entities, supporting them. I don't know whether it's an obligation or they're supporting them because they believe in their vision. But it got me thinking this morning that some of these political parties, especially new political parties, and I'll talk about new political parties because when it's a new political party, we don't attach it to corruption or anything of the past. But normally, new political parties is a new person who might have been involved in politics before, but they sort of have a clean slate. So they'll get all sorts of donations in millions, um, and sometimes in excess of 100 million, like I said before. And what made me think this morning is that this person has got this manifesto about how he's going to bring solutions to the South African problems. And then this man is sitting on 120 million rand, 100 million rand. And what the question that I had in my mind this morning was the money that you are raising during campaigning, why don't you use that money to start implementing some of the solutions? I understand that when you're running for elections and you're not in parliament or in government, you don't have the powers to make any changes to any legislation or something like that. But you can start at a community level, start implementing those things. For example, if your passion is crime, like myself, dealing with the issue of crime, why don't you start coming up with solutions in communities that are visible, that they can see that you came up with the solution, you implemented it, and it's running. So whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is that compelled you to start a political party, if it's unemployment, why don't you use the money that you raised for the campaign and start creating some opportunities in your environment, in your ward, in your city, in your province? Why don't you use that money to start doing something as opposed to using the money to you know, package your promises, in t-shirts and hampers and slogans and stuff like that. No, use the money to start implementing the thing that you're promising to implement if you got the chance to be president of this country. So that got me really thinking to say, South Africans don't want to hear about what you're going to do for them. South Africans they want to see what you are doing. They want to see, just demonstrate your capability. Stop talking. If communities come together and say, guys, let's start a movement where we will understand the South African problem and find the solutions together, all races together, find out how we're going to solve the issue of crime, how we're going to solve the issue of unemployment. And once you decide on which issues you're going to prioritize, you get to work. You raise the funds. You start implementing these little things. The idea that you came together and put together, you implement them in one ward, one city, one municipality, and that's how you can spread the message. And then instead of going to campaign and tell people what you're gonna do for them, they're actually drawn to you, and they come to you and say, "How can we get involved?" Because you're not just talking; you're actually implementing the things that you say you believe. So I was just thinking about that this morning to say, political parties they raise so much money, even from sources that you would be shocked about. But they raise so much money that if a political campaign was spread over a period of 10 years before you can even run for president, that would make more sense to me, because at least you give yourself time to actually work in the communities that you want to impact. You start working on the policies that you claim you want to implement if given a chance to be president. But then why not use the funds to start doing some sort of implementation even if it's in a small scale? But then you get to see how practical it is. And when it starts working, people will come to you voluntarily because they can see that the things you talked about are actually working. So if we're going to change this place called South Africa, it will come from us. It's not going to come from politicians, because politicians, for them, it's just a campaign. It's almost like it's a 5-step book that everybody else reads to say, just raise the money, have some slogans, talk about land, talk about apartheid, divide the races in South Africa as much as you can, and tell them everything is going to be free. It's like a playbook. And it doesn't come with any solutions. We've seen this already. It doesn't come up with any solutions because the solutions were never, those solutions were never real to start with. But then if we start a movement where we have dialogues, I know dialogue is a bad word at the moment, but we have our dialogues. If we break down our country or our province or our city into small sections, and we have our little dialogues about, guys, what can we do? Whether it's 3 people or 30 people, you're starting something. And then you get to understand how much you need, and then you go out and reach out for funding. And the minute you start implementing those things, normal members of the South African community will just see that these people are working, and then they will be drawn to you, and they will join you, and that's how you will grow it. Knowing that everybody that is involved in this movement is solutions orientated as opposed to promises orientated. So those are my thoughts for this morning. And please, in your comments, tell me what you think, because my thought this morning is politicians and their political parties will not be the solution, because they deal with promises. We need a movement that can deal with solutions, meaning that nobody goes out to announce themselves as a political party. The first thing you do is you get to do the work. Identify the problems, find the solutions, and start implementing. And when you start doing that, that 100 people will expand organically, and people will be drawn to this mission because they can see it working. So tell me what you think, and I really appreciate the comments that have been coming through, because your comments are very, very detailed, and I can see that people are really getting down and applying their minds about the stuff that we talk about and the problems that we're facing in South Africa. So in your comments, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the communication that you guys are sending back to me. And let's think about it. Think about the problems that we are facing. Think about how the solutions can be applied. It's not about promises. South Africans are tired of promises. Anyway, until then, stay safe.